Hello, welcome to the Eclectic Reader. Listen to great books and stories while you use your eyes and hands for other things. Now here's your host, Madison Mason.
Hello again, Madison Mason here. Welcome back. We're at chapter 59 of The Gray Quarry Boys. We're getting close to the end. The Gray Quarry Boys, chapter 59, Cold News. That night it turned so bitter cold it had a taste to it. Mean Carolina freeze ate through the clothes, whatever was worn, with no respect for quilted nylon or anything else moms had devised for boys to stay warm. He hated it. Icy wet weather that made his skinny finger bones ache. The wretched weather stripped trees bare and sent birds scurrying on brutal winds, nearly slamming houses in their frantic flapping to survive. Black and hungry, starving starlings, their jeweled eyes searching the cold, desperate for some forgotten grain or seed. The squirrels stayed wrapped in their tails high in the hickory trees on this morning of ice. They shivered against the banging wind, which took no pity on their flimsy nests. A dull Studebaker slipped and slid slowly toward the bridge. Windows steamed and puffing smoke. A little old man peered through a tiny, clear space in the windshield. Joey Morton hopped on one foot, trying to forget his biting ears, and remembered to keep his lips over his buck teeth. Those big teeth had a life of their own, which his thin blue lips had no hope of warming. They were too big for his mouth, and once cold, they ached so hard. The cold hurt into the back of his brain. He felt the raw edges of his running nose start to freeze and crack, and still he would wipe it, even though he knew what would happen. Here he was on the creaking ice of the frozen stream by Charlie Connor's house, hopping, flapping, wiping, and wondering what was up. Something was up, something was wrong. He didn't know what, but that much he knew. He watched his father and expected the worst. He was usually right. The big man lit a Camel with his equally big Zippo and closed the lighter with the familiar clanking snap. The unmistakable sound bounced off the stone sides of the little bridge and along the icy creek, shattering into frozen silence somewhere along the Saturday morning wind. Home on leave with his Zippo, the old man checked his watch and exhaled a sweet smell of burning sugar and saltpeter. The boy tried to copy him with his breath. What time is it, Dad?" He shivered, wishing it was over. 09:17, he muttered, the voice muffled by white smoke pouring out of his face. A big lumpy finger pushed the silver-rimmed glasses back up onto the bridge of his nose. Hard eyes searched the house fronts, gathering his thoughts. A skinny man, his father had odd fat fingers like they belonged to someone else, and he had borrowed them. The big soldier inhaled a chest full of winter and tobacco smoke, and blew out more than he had taken in. Joey tried to match his cloud, but the scraggy puff was stolen by the insolent wind. The arm around Joey's shoulder increased his suspicion. Fear slid into his heart like a poisonous medicine. His father never put his arm around him, and never, but never got out of bed before 10 o'clock when he was home on leave. Never. Something was up. Maybe it was the way he had said, "Let's take a walk," and called him son. He also never called him son. Not that he wasn't his son. They were both pretty convinced that he was. But it wasn't a term he ever used, like out of a movie or something, like Shane would say to Brandon DeWilde, or John Wayne would say to some kid he really respected as a man, a companion, some kid whose parents had croaked or been slaughtered by the Indians, and the Duke had to break the news. Son, comforting yet respectful, man to man. "Let's take a walk," he had said. This manly regard scared the hell out of Joey. Holy moly, what have I done now? His brain ran a guilty inventory of all the secret stuff the old man might have found out about. Oh, God, now I'm going to get it. His mind frantically erected a breastwork of explanations to justify anything, anybody, anywhere could have told him. The best defense was to be prepared for all eventualities. His father was a military man, a Cold War expert trained in brainwashing and psycho-warfare. He exercised his lore on his family without regard to size or age. He was a master. The boys learned very early not to confide a thing, not to give away any information that could be used later against you. The only secrets were those you kept to yourself. Joey's life and his head were full of them. His mother had lowered her eyes and pretended to be somewhere else as he pulled on his insufficient jacket and headed out of the house, his mind racing, expecting to get hit. It had happened before. They left the house in mutual silence, buffeted by the brutal morning, and walked down the road toward the frozen creek, the soldier keeping his own counsel and the boy hastily preparing his defense. Now the arm was around Joey as he waited for the worst. Posture severe, military, his dad pursed his lips, pulling them back into his mouth in a thin line until they disappeared. His breath came in another smoky gust. I don't know how to tell you this. I expect you to take it like a man, but if you have to cry, this is the place to do it. The boy braced himself as pudgy hands sat on his shoulders. His dad's gold ruby ring gave the only warmth to the scene. There was a long pause, and then, Buddy James died last night. Sharp, fast, then silence. He couldn't have heard right. This was the last thing he expected. What? Thoughts raced through his head so suddenly and in such confusion he had no feeling. His dad grimaced. There was a fire last night. Someone smoking in bed. Family died. Joey didn't remember the rest of what he said. Something about the house being badly burned. Joey ran down the ice creek, slipping until he rounded the corner by the big willow, and he could see from there. It was only a half a block away, and there was no house at all. Just black stumps and ashes on the little concrete pad. He heard his old man's voice. Buddy's parents, something or other, but his mind was tearing through memories and emotions at the speed of light, as fast as a teenage mind travels. The old man came up behind him, thought he was crying, and squeezed his shoulder in an attempt at comfort. Joey, head down, stared at the thin, brittle lines cracking under his feet, laughing. Not crying. He was laughing. Laughing, in stunned disbelief. Who knows why? Relief, fear, shock, hunger. Laughing uncontrollably as he fought to get hold of his swirling mind. Buddy James, that rotten little shit, the meanest kid in the neighborhood, the bully and instigator who jumped Joey the first time he met him on the third day in his new house and gave him a bloody nose and a split lip for no reason, the kid who hated Joey's guts for no reason. Not true, Joey knew why, because he was new and sensitive, a weak little boy too close to his mummy. And he could smell it, Buddy James, the most hateful sniping shit ever, who sicked a dog and 3 of the guys on him and made his life miserable from the first day, and now he was dead? A kid was dead in his neighborhood, and he wasn't sad at all. Christ, he was relieved. And confused. How horrible. What a rotten turd he was to feel no remorse at the loss of a boy's life. Never mind the kid was a bully who threw rocks at him if he went past his house, and who, Joey knew, if he wanted to live on the street as anything other than a skulking yellow dog, he would have to fight some day. This woke him, sweating in the middle of the night after he'd been slaughtered in his own blood once again by the vilest of all villains, this killer kid. He hated those dreams. And now he was dead, and Joey was free. At the same time, he knew something would be forever incomplete. The challenge left unmet. It would haunt him and leave his manhood unproved. Something had relieved him of a burden, robbed him of his moment of truth, stole his rite of passage into the unforgiving society of neighborhood boys. As a fighter, a scrapper. Even if he lost, he was pretty much guaranteed at least he'd be a guy to be respected. And here was his father comforting him as best he could, and Joey tried to cough up tears, acting his frozen little ass off for the naked trees and the coal-smoking chimneys, trying to think of the things to say to make the big man think what a brave little soldier he had. Buddy was gone. Buddy was gone. Maybe he wasn't all bad. Maybe they could have eventually been friends. But Joey was unforgiving. His tongue could still feel the ragged scar inside his bottom lip where the dead kid had made him taste his own blood with a dirty sucker shot he didn't see coming. He saw stars, actual stars, and smelled the pain in his nose as tears rushed to his eyes, blurring the faces in the circle of boys he'd approached, innocent, earnest, and in peace. He remembered the slam, the jolt, the sudden impact and coming to on the ground, filled with a desire to run, but he turned his back and stumbled off crying and bleeding and trying to be John Wayne's little man. Now tears came again, real tears, hot in the dead January sun as he realized he'd never see Buddy James again, the first dead kid in his life, a kid lost forever. Maybe just a matter of time and they would have been buddies, blood brothers, cut their thumbs like Burt Lancaster and that Indian guy in that movie, but not now. Now it was too late. He's cutting thumbs with the angels, Joey thought, or the devils. And he cried more tears for the other guys, Todd Kyle, Benny Morse, the guys who really knew Buddy James, who really had something to miss, a special history, shared spirit, something Joey would never know. His old man mentioned the parents as drunks. Suddenly it all came to him why the kid acted that way, miserable punk with his hidden life. He lived with drunks, a kid stumbling under the load of the dirty facts after dark. Buddy's secret was shut up like Joey's, behind the living lie of a clapboard house whose ugly secret was now a dark hole burned into its own heart, where Buddy James used to be. It hit him hard then, and he really cried. Buddy probably looked at him as better, a pampered kid, with everything, loved by Mommy and Dad, everything he wasn't. Buddy was wrong. Buddy didn't know Joey, but Joey knew him. Suddenly he knew him. They were the same kid, only they weren't. Buddy was burnt black, dead and gone, and Joey was still here. And he cried then, hard. He cried all the way back to their same white house on the same frozen street in the same tiny town, and sat down to his mother's hot breakfast. He ate and sobbed and wondered why his brother, Ronnie, stared at him. All day he wondered about kids and their parents, families and booze and life. It made him blue. He thought of the cold and the wind and the small birds, and he never saw Buddy again.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of The Eclectic Reader. Please go on to the next numbered episode to continue. Also, check us out on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. If you'd like to help support the project, you can donate under Madison Mason at Patreon. And please, check out our website, kltkrdr.com, for more information.
Hi, this is Madison Mason. I want to personally thank you for listening to The Eclectic Reader and invite you to share your experience, your thoughts, and your suggestions. We have many great books lined up for the future, but if you have requests for anything that is in the public domain, please email us at kltkrdr@gmail.com.
kltkrdr@gmail.com